Hello guys, welcome to my video tutorial series on Google Ad Manager. So I know it's been a long time, but I'm back with you with yet another video for Google Ad Manager. In my last video tutorial, I covered on the setup of Google Ad Exchange, and I'm providing its link in the description below, so you'll be able to catch up where we left. Today we'll be covering pricing rules in your Google Ad Exchange setup. So getting your pricing rules right is one of the most pivotal things to your business. If you get your pricing rules right, it can mean a lot in your revenue. So it's very most important, or not very, the most important thing in your revenue optimization. And if you get it right, your eCPMs would be maximum and your coverage would be optimal. We'll be covering the two of the most important pillars of the pricing rules in this video tutorial. So we'll be covering your pricing rule structure, and we'll be covering your actual pricing. So what do we mean by the structure? So structure lays the foundation of your pricing rules. So in this section, we're actually defining the segments on which you'll actually set up your pricing. Now that you've defined the segments of your pricing rules, it's time to actually set up the pricing for these two segments. So there are two ways in which you'll actually be able to set up the pricing for these two segments. Either you can set up a floor price or provide a target CPM. So in this video tutorial, I'll be covering on whether of which of these choices is better for you. So whether you should go in for floor prices or whether you should go in for target CPMs. So it depends upon your needs, but I'll tell you which is the most optimal choice for you. And there's also a third option. So if you are not sure of what pricing you should set, you can go in with Google optimized pricing. We've also discussed in this video tutorial when it is not best to use Google optimized pricing. And lastly, we'll be covering experiments in this video tutorial. Experiments is a relatively new feature that got rolled out nearly 1.5 years back. So with this experiments, you're able to test whether the pricing you have set on to a particular segment is leading to a positive or negative revenue impact. And to minimize the negative revenue impact, you can set up an auto pause condition on your experiments. So you can set up a condition wherein if your overall revenue drops below 5%, please auto pause this experiment. So it's a very cool feature, and you should definitively use it to test your pricing on your pricing rule structures.
Now let's deep dive into understanding the pricing rule structure in detail. So as mentioned in the video description, we'll be understanding the two important pillars, that's the segments and it is the pricing. If you can see in this video or in the screenshot that I've shared, so I've shared examples of the segments which will be used to divide the inventory. Now these are just the examples of the segments, and please don't treat them as the only segments that you will be using in your pricing rules. So for the sake of example, I've considered these 4 segments, but you can go all creative and you can choose as many segments as possible. So in this, I've actually created a pricing rule structure wherein I have split your inventory across your device category, your ad units, your operating system and your country. So how does that go along? So at beneath we have a pricing rule that is your default pricing rule. So this is your base pricing rule, and by configuring this we are actually setting up the baseline CPMs. Then we are going one category up or one level up, and then we are specifying different set of CPMs for desktop and mobile. And beyond that, then we are actually going in and segregating with ad units. In my example, I have in here 2 ad units, but you might have a lot of ad units, so you can imply a similar structure there. After this, we are trying to cover the operating systems. So I've only listed down operating systems for the mobile section because Android and iOS only exist for mobile. So we'll only categorize further for operating system when it comes to the mobile. And lastly, what I've done is I've included country as an example, and I've included 2 of the highest paying CPM countries, So usually US and Canada pays the highest, but you may also have countries like UK and other European countries that are also in your like tier 1 CPMs. So this is the foundation structure we have created, and now we'll try to understand how your inventory is actually getting split amongst these particular segments. Now, to understand how our inventory is actually getting divided into these 4 segments, we'll expand our examples and we'll add in the pricing for these particular segments. Now, in my example, I'm applying a default at the pricing rule, a price of $0.10. So we have created a default pricing rules. So we are specifying to everybody that for our inventory this is the baseline price, and as we have configured a floor price in here. So right now we are just talking about the floor price, not the target CPM, the floor price. So we have applied a floor price of 0.10 USD in here. So we are telling everybody and all the advertisers that we will be eligible, like you guys will be eligible to bid our inventory only above 0.10 USD. Now you have noticed that your desktop outperforms your mobile. So your desktop CPMs are around like 0.3 USD, which is like 3x for your mobile. So this is just an hypothesis. Please don't consider this as an absolute reality. It's just for an example sake. So once we find that our desktop CPMs are higher, I would go ahead and apply a floor price for desktop at a higher price, 0.30 USD. Now further down the line, you notice that some of your ad units are actually performing even better and they have even higher CPMs. So you go in here and you apply again a floor price of, for instance, ad unit 2 is a sticky ad unit and it's actually performing pretty well, and it's got CPMs of around 0.50, let's say, so 0.50. Yeah. Now you encounter that your USA and Canada are your tier 1 countries and they have got extremely high CPMs. So you apply a CPM of the floor price. Always remember, it's the floor price right now we are concentrating on, because I haven't told you what is the target CPM, and we'll consider the differences shortly, but for now it's a floor price of 1 USD. Okay, now similarly let's perform this cycle for also mobile. Let me just expand this a little so that you can see it. Okay, now let's focus on the mobile. And for mobile, purposefully I'm not actually providing you a CPM. I'll explain this to you later on, because we have noticed that we have a baseline CPM in here and mobile CPMs are also in line almost with the floor price that we have set up. So I'm not actually going ahead and providing in a CPM. However, for ad unit 1, I'm aware that it's a sticky ad unit and it performs pretty well. So I'm going ahead and actually providing in a floor price of 0.40 USD. And lastly, what I encounter is this ad unit performs pretty well in Android and it's got an even higher CPM. So I'm setting its target CPM to 0.70 in mobile Android devices. Now you must have noticed that I have skipped certain sections, like I haven't provided in pricing for mobile, or I haven't actually provided in a pricing for ad unit 2 in here, and for iOS I haven't provided a pricing for ad unit 1. So why I have done that? So there's a concept of intersection in the pricing rules. So it's similar to the traditional set theory that we have. So whenever true pricing rules intersect, the pricing rule with a higher price gets applied. So I wanted to ensure that the intersects are minimal, and wherein there are intersects I'm not providing a price for it. So that's why I have left those sections unintended. But in here, so as we haven't provided a pricing for mobile, but by default its pricing would be same as that of the default pricing rule. So even though I have not applied, it will implicitly get a 0.10 USD pricing. Similarly, for add unit 2, as it is there isn't a default price price I've applied in at the mobile level, it will still again get in the pricing rule set at this particular floor price. So add unit 2 will also have a pricing rule applied of 0.10 USD. So I did this intentionally because I wanted you to understand, if you do not provide in pricing for certain sections and you have a broader category of pricing rules, how does that pricing gets applied to the above sections? I hope this is clear. Now to achieve this setup, I've actually listed down the pricing rules. So this setup that I've listed below can be achieved in these particular number of pricing rules. So here in this particular section, I'm just trying to explain you all particular use case. This is not actually a recommendation on the pricing rule, and that needs to be structured after actually evaluating your performance of your account. So we need to actually pull reports wherein we see how is your ad CPM and coverage with regards to every segment that we have chosen, and we can go as granular as possible. The more granular you go, there's a possibility of increasing the CPMs, but it takes time and it gets difficult to maintain. So it's a choice that you guys have to decide. Now explaining this setup, what we have done is we have just created six pricing rules, sorry, not 7, and then this we have been able to cover all these things. So at first we have our default pricing rule and it's targeting all of the inventory, and then we have our desktop pricing rule that targets the device category desktop. So in pricing rules you'll see an option to target device category and you can go ahead and target them. Now in the third pricing rule, it's targeting desktop and it's targeting the ad unit 2. So I've just combined these two pricing rules because when you combine in these two pricing rules, you're able to set up a higher price. Why? Let me explain to you this in a little bit more detail. So for instance, you're aware that ad unit 2 is your higher performing ad unit and it provides you higher CPMs. Similarly, you're aware that desktop also provides you more CPM than mobile. So if you combine these two pricing rules, it's most obvious that you'll get a higher CPM. So I have done this only up to 2 levels and I've not extended it, but we could have gone ahead and actually have done this to the third level as well. But right now, for the sake of simplicity, I didn't included this particular geo that performs the best. So actually combining this with desktop would have lead to a CPM that would have been in 1.2 or 1.3 range. But yeah, you can go as granular as you want, but for the sake of simplicity and just for the sake of your understanding, to understand the concept, I've kept the structure relatively simpler. And in here I've just provided a CPM for ad unit 1 in mobile. So here also we're combining ad unit 1 and mobile, and lastly we are providing a CPM of 0.70 for Android. So here we are targeting operating system Android and not an Android and mobile. So yeah, so this is the 6 pricing rules that covers this structure. Now let's come to the pricing. So I might have used like target CPM and floor prices interchangeably sometimes, but in here right now I just considered floor prices because floor prices initially rolled out, followed by target CPM and followed by optimized pricing. So these are some enhancements that Google has been doing to give you better control. Now, but it's upon us, where we should use them, and I'll make you certain recommendation where we should use target CPM and where we should use floor price. But before going into that, let's understand quickly what's target CPM and floor price. Now you understand what floor price is already. So floor price, when you're defining a floor price, you're defining a baseline CPM and all advertisers need to bid beyond that. But what is a target CPM? So with target CPM, you're not setting up a floor price, but you're giving Google an average CPM that it should aim. So in a particular scenario, if you use target CPM and you have set up a floor price of 0.10 USD, there's an incoming bid of 0.11. So as you have set up a target CPM, advertiser one's bid would get accepted. Similarly, even though advertiser 2 comes in and its average bid is like 0.9, Google will still accept it because it knows that the overall average CPM is still in this 0.10 range. So you have specified to Google that instead of floor price, I am using a target CPM. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. And what this will cause is, this will cause your overall revenue to be $0.2 in this particular scenario. Now let's replicate the scenario with floor price. Now advertiser 1 comes with a bid of 0.11, advertiser 2 comes with a bid of 0.9. As you have set up a definitive floor price, only the bids of advertiser 1 will get accepted, and so your overall revenue would be only $0.11. So as we have understood in this particular example, using target CPM over floor price has one advantage, that what it does is it actually helps you improve your coverage by bringing in additional bids and helps you in improving your overall revenue. But should we still use floor prices? Yes. Where? In the baselines rules you have, so you want to set certain standards for your inventory. You want that nobody should buy your inventory beyond a certain threshold, not below that. So in these particular scenarios, in very like baseline pricing rules, so you, in this example, you can set floor prices for your default or your desktop and mobile pricing rules. So for your baseline pricing rules, please go ahead and set up a floor price. Now when it comes to more granular pricing rules, like we have a pricing rule that's targeting desktop and added it to, and it has a floor price of 0.50. So here in all these pricing rules, I would recommend that we go in with target CPM instead. So it should be target CPM. Similarly here as well, it should be target CPM, and in here as well, target CPM. And lastly, for your Android pricing rule as well, we would prefer target CPM. Okay, so I hope you've understood the distinction of when it's best to use one versus another. Now let's understand what is Google optimized pricing. In here, we have set up a definitive price because when we pulled up reports in our account, we were sure and we were seeing some distinct CPMs over a certain period of time. Now you encounter that like there are a lot of variation in your account in terms of CPMs, and you're not sure of what CPMs you should set, or you're pretty new to your account and you're not aware of their baseline CPMs, and you leave it best to Google to decide. So with Google optimized pricing, you are not setting up a static price in here. You're letting Google decide the best possible price for your inventory, and that is what is Google optimized pricing. In here, I have actually listed down one of the most important questions that I told you that I'll cover, that when you should not use Google optimized pricing. So you should not use Google optimized pricing specifically for your default baseline pricing rules. Let me tell you why. So if you only have a one particular rule that is your default rule and you give it a Google optimized pricing, it works. There's not an issue. However, if you have other pricing rules that overlap your baseline pricing rule, then you should not use Google optimized pricing at your default pricing. So you should not use in here, sorry, not in here. So you should not use in here Google optimized pricing. If you do that, with Google optimized pricing, Google always tries to, fetch you its best CPM. So there might be scenarios wherein adding it to's impression might fall into default pricing, because as I have mentioned to you guys earlier, whenever there's an intersect of pricing rules, so the pricing rule with a higher price gets chosen. So it's possible that Google might try to increase the default pricing rule to a higher price than your granular pricing rule, and this leads to unintended pricing. Lastly, we are on experiments now. So experiments is another very cool feature from Google that actually lets you test different pricing before they actually go live, and they let you perform an A and B test. What do we mean by that? So you have set up a floor price of 0.30 USD, and now you think your inventory for desktop is much better. This is the holiday season coming in, so you want to set in a higher price. So but before doing that, you want to run it via Google experiment. So what you want to do is you want to split your inventory into two tests. So you can split it up into A and B. With A, you're setting up a by default the pricing that you have, that is 0.30 USD. However, you felt that you might get a 0.50 USD pricing, and this should lead to an overall incremental revenue. So Google will actually run experiments and will tell you whether switching from 0.30 to 50 USD is leading to a positive or negative revenue impact in your account. And lastly, you can set up an auto pause condition. So if you're not sure, that obviously we are not sure, we are trying something, so we are not sure whether this experiment leads to a positive or a negative revenue impact. So what we do is we are trying to do something. However, if it goes wrong, and we can set up an auto pause condition, we can specify a revenue threshold. By default it's 5%, so we can tell if your overall revenue drops below 5%, please auto pause this experiment. So Google experiment allows you to test pricing before they actually go live, and they allow you to do that with minimal risk. And just to clarify, like these experiments are run on the live inventory, so it's actually live, but yeah, they are in a test environment and they are tested first with a controlled manner. Now with this I conclude the video, and in this particular video it was more on the strategical end, and I've tried to explain to you things like on the strategic basis of how do you go in with your structure, pricing, and what experiments are. Now in the next video tutorial and coming up, I will actually deep dive into the UI and actually show you how to do that. That would be a relatively shorter video because I have explained to you the concepts already in here. So in the next video it will be just navigating to the UI and telling you where you can create pricing rules, where you can set up your targeting, and what all things you can do. With that, I say goodbye. See you in the next video.